Before we jump into today's episode, please remember this podcast is not therapy and it doesn't replace working with a qualified professional. While I aim to keep things grounded in science and offer a lot of educational insight, the content here should never be generalized. Everyone's experience is different. If you're experiencing any mental or medical distress, please reach out to a licensed provider who can support your specific needs. Welcome back to ADHD Realities. I'm your host, Dr. Leann Borneman, clinical sexologist, ADHD relationship and sexuality expert. And this is the podcast we talk all things ADHD and sexuality in ways research is still lacking. So join me in today's episode and let's jump in. Today's episode is for anyone who has ever been mid-masturbation thinking to yourself, why the fuck am I focusing on this toy like I'm doing a damn product review instead of enjoying my damn pleasure? Don't you worry, we've all been there. Or on the flip side, the person who's experienced feeling like maybe your clit is broken and it's like, is this thing even on? Am I numb from the waist down? I got you. We're talking all things vibrators, sensory overwhelm, ADHD brains. And this all started with a comment someone sent me that made me start to think, holy shit, this is actually something that's been very common with a variety of my clients. And I never thought about focusing on the fact that there's a world outside of my little practice bubble and that potentially that world could benefit from this information. So I'm going to start this episode by unpacking the statement, the comment that was left in my DM with permission from the individual. And then I'm going to break down ADHD and the sensory processing piece and give you potentially a helpful guide that can help with dampening the sensations or amping the sensations up if you become understimulated. And then what I want to do is I want to walk through extra things to keep in mind that can totally change your experience, even if you've been using toys for years. So, without further ado, let's talk all things vibration. So, this individual sent me this message, and I was so excited to get this message because I absolutely love when my followers reach out and they tell me their stories. I actually love it. So, I'm going to read it word for word. They said, it's a problem if I try to use a vibrator on my own. To the point that I can almost never get a happy ending if I play on my own with a vibrator because my brain goes to the vibrating pattern and the noise and the light on the thing, even, but not my pleasure. But if the toy is being controlled by a partner, whether that be remotely, by Bluetooth, or in person, I can focus on my partner's voice, their intention, movement, and not the vibrator. When it's like that, the vibrator actually enhances the experience and allows me to achieve many O's. Now, this individual, that right there is a sensory-based experience. And it speaks volume to how some individuals can experience overstimulation, others can experience understimulation, and then you can kind of also flip-flop between the two, depending on your circumstances. And when it comes to ADHD, sensory processing differences is a thing, and it varies from person to person. And we need to be talking more about it, how it shows up in these areas, right? Now, solo, when we think about solo play, just to break this down a little bit, your brain is running both the pleasure and then also the equipment. It literally becomes this full body experience. And not for nothing, but our ADHD brains can be notorious for getting stuck on the wrong part of our interactions. And so think of all the different sensories that can be experienced in that moment. You got the hum of the motor, the blinking light, depending on what toy you have, the vibration pattern itself. All of those, it kind of takes up the front row space in your brain instead of just sitting in the background, allowing yourself to kind of decompress and enjoy yourself. So that's not you being wrong or something wrong with your body. That's actually your brain doing exactly what it's fucking wired to do. It's noticing and analyzing sensory input. Now, whether you're okay or you like that is a total separate entity. But the thing here is that we live in a society that tells you that's not supposed to be. But in reality, anatomy-wise, yeah, that's a fucking thing. But let's talk about how you manage it, how you've become informed so you are aware that there's nothing wrong with you and that this narrative now gives you some insights on how to approach things. So that person's statement and experience is something that makes a lot of sense when we look at the brain and how we process information. Because when your partner is running the toy, your focus now shifts to them, not the toy, right? You're now turned into their voice, their intention, their touch, and you're not worrying about the fucking logistics of controlling a damn piece of tech while you're trying to achieve pleasure. And what that is it's actually called sensory load shifting, where they then take on the management and you just get to sit back and receive. And it's a glorious thing. And for some ADHD brains, that actually can be the difference between the nothing really is happening moment to the oh my fucking Lanta, multiple orgasms galore, I'm in a good place moment, okay? But not everyone has a partner. And not everyone who does have a partner wants their partner involved. So what do you do to create the sensory load shifting for yourself if you don't have a partner or you don't want your partner to be part of it? I got you. First and foremost, you can preset your toy before you even start, right? You want to choose the pattern, the speed maybe that you want, and then just commit to it, leaving it there for the whole session. So your brain doesn't become tempted to fiddle or you feel the need to move, okay? You can also use props or a strap. Toys come packed now with straps. You have your underwear, also toys, which can be very helpful. But propping or strapping the toy in itself, you don't then have to hold it. And you can use pillows. You can use harnesses. You can even use folded blankets to position it where you maybe want, right? And so what that does is it lets you focus on the sensation, not, again, your grip. You can also use external focus cues like erotic audio, fantasy building playlist. You can also do some guided meditations. Yes, you can use guided meditations while you're masturbating. It's a thing, right? Giving your brain a main character other than the toy can recreate that partner focus effect when having the actual person there. You can also set the scene ahead of time. You can fix your lighting. You can fix the temperature, add the lube, put all the things that you need in place to feel comfortable. So once you then are starting, there's zero decision making required. Okay? The goal is the same whether you're solo or partnered. What you're trying to do is you're removing as much operational thinking as possible so your brain can just sink into the experience and fucking enjoy themselves. And not everyone has the same struggle with toys. And this is kind of where the nuance comes back into play. Because you have people that can get overstimulated, right? That means maybe the sensation becomes way too sharp, it's too fast, or with too many sensory layers altogether. It's too much all at once, right? And your brain basically gets to the point of throwing its hands up and being like, absolutely fucking not, I'm done, I'm out, right? And this can feel like irritation. You can feel numbness, maybe losing your mental arousal or even feeling uncomfortable to the point of shutting down. Your body just can react due to that overstimulation. You then have other people that can become understimulated, where maybe the toy might feel way too mild, the pattern itself too repetitive, or the intensity just doesn't become enough to hold your brain's attention. And this isn't about being broken or desensitized. It actually becomes about your nervous system, your needs. What input, output do you need to stay engaged, especially if you run under aroused as a baseline? And here's the kicker. So for some people, it's not just one or the other. It can be a swing between both, right? You can be some days overstimulated and other days understimulated. You can be ultra sensitive where you can barely, handle any touch. Or other days you might need the fucking jackhammer of power tools to help the stimulation hit you enough where you feel on board. And here's what makes all of that even more unpredictable. You have things like your moods, your hormones, your stress, and all of the sensory load before play that kind of go into the mix. Because when you think of even just like mood, if your mental state changes in one direction, that can play a role in then how much stimulation you can handle. Your hormones, your cycle phases, perimenopause, menopause, all of that can shift even sensitivity and even your arousal patterns. Then, not to add any extra layers here, but stress. High stress can make you more prone to overstimulation. It can also make you more numb. Basically, at the end of the day, it's fucking unpredictable. And then when you also have that sensory load before play, right? You've already been overwhelmed all day, overtouched, overstimulated mentally. Your tolerance for sensation may be completely lower. These are all variables. These are all layers. This is the nuance we talk about. And the point is, where you fall on this spectrum isn't fixed. It can change day to day, week to week, or even in the middle of one play session. And yeah, can that be frustrating? Sure. If you see your interactions as linear. If you see it differently, this can be a form of curiosity. And I'll talk more about curiosity probably down the line. But instead of thinking, I'm an overstimulation, or I'm an overstimulated person, or I'm an understimulated person, think of yourself as having a sensory dial that you can learn to read and adjust. And not for nothing, but when you can tap into that navigation and growth in terms of who you are and how you show up, that's fucking empowering as all hell. And that's exactly what part of this episode is going to help you do. We want to help figure out how to turn that dial up or down, depending on what your brain and body need in that moment. So now I want to jump into the practical guide side of things. Now, before I get into all of the things that I'm going to bring up that I see a lot in the work I do with tons of my clients, understand that even this can be helpful, but you are a unique individual. And what that means is that this can be helpful, but your situation, I don't know your situation, right? Only you know your situation. So I'm providing information in regards to the situations I have been privy to help navigate and explore with my clients. And this is one of the reasons I always tell individuals who are working on anything ADHD related, even outside of sex, it is tailored to you. So if you don't have the privilege to work with someone like myself or the access to work with someone like myself, I'm also wanting to provide some empowerment here because at the end of the day, you're still your own professional. Never let anyone make you think otherwise. And so taking this information, knowing who you are and your situations and your dynamics, hopefully will provide you some level of interaction that maybe you weren't getting before. Okay, I digress. Let's get into it. So let's start with if you're somebody that's getting overstimulated. So then the goal here is we want to dampen those sensations, okay? And again, everyone's going to be different. So we're focusing specifically on my peeps who are overstimulated. So first thing is we want to lower the intensity if that's the issue, right? Don't let your toys turbo setting be the first stop, okay? That's rule number one. Start at the lowest speed and stay there longer than you think you should, okay? I can't say that enough. For ADHD brains, novelty can trick you into thinking faster is better, but sometimes it just overloads the whole situation, okay? Now, if you are somebody that you know after you do this trial and error stuff, that novelty is something you need, there are some toys out there that actually have settings where it changes the pattern, but not the vibration setting. That would be very helpful. The other thing to be very mindful of as you approach these things is you can also explore using a buffer, right? You can slip your toy over your underwear. You can even place a thin t-shirt between you and the toy. Or you can wrap it in a silky scarf or even a sock. I mean, you can get fucking creative here. Because what that does is that layer spreads the sensation so it's less sharp and more diffused. And this is especially helpful for sensitive clits that basically tap out very quickly. I'm one of them. Yeah, I self-disclosed. You also can pick quieter toys. If the vibration piece and the sound piece is causing you to become overstimulated, okay? Dampen the sensation here by using something that lowers it. Now, noise can be as distracting as the sensation itself, and a high-pitched buzz might be enough that is causing your brain to spiral. You may not even realize it. So when you're choosing toys marketed as whisper quiet, those are the go-to, okay? Or if, let's say, you have a toy that you absolutely love and it's not necessarily quiet, you can also try to navigate playing some background noise. Tons of people like white noise, but it would be really about you finding what background music works for you. I know for me, I can't listen to just any type of music. It has to be specific because there are certain forms of music that will actually pull my attention and I'll become totally distracted and I'll start like vibing with the music and I'll not be vibing with the thing I want to be vibing with. So everyone is going to vary here. If you are like me and you're struggling to find any type of background noise to minimize the vibration, you can actually also try to wrap the toy depending on the size of the toy with like a washcloth or a small hand cloth and wrap it a few times. And what you do by default is you're quieting the sound by covering it, but not covering the good parts of the toy. So you can try that as well. You also want to be mindful of lighting. So blocking the lights can be very helpful because some toys, they have like the LED displays, and they can actually be so bright that it can land like a fucking plane. Like I don't even understand the reason for it, the logic for it. I don't know. Maybe people are interested in like hardcore, like techno house type vibe with the vibe. I have no idea. But unfortunately, there are toys like this. So if, let's say, that glow feels very intrusive, you might want to play with the dim lighting option if you have it. If your toy sucks and it's just one of those like toys that are super bright and there's no option to lower the brightness, like some of these fucking toddler toys, by the way, with the sound, they are so fucking loud and there is no option to go lower. Like, what are they thinking? I digress. Put tape over it. Just tape. You can use like painter's tape, the blue tape, and put a couple of pieces there. I know painter's tape is pretty cheap. You can use like the thick black tape, the Gorilla tape, whatever. It doesn't matter. You figure that out. I'm not going to go into all the different fucking tapes out here. Jeez Louise, Leann. But at the end of the day, if it's a part that's causing you to feel overstimulated, your brain's going to thank you. Try to minimize it. The other thing to think of is also the feels of the actual product. So material makes a huge difference. Silicone actually absorbs vibrations slightly. And what they end up doing is they actually then give the cushion sensation. And so hard ABS plastic delivers more of a zap. So if that direct punch or hard plastic becomes too much for you, switching to silicone or a toy with a softer head can be very helpful. You also have to be mindful of sudden changes and how that might show up for you in regards to does it work or does it not work. For some people, sudden changes is very similar like task switching. It becomes way too much. So what I'm talking about is when these toys go from one pattern to the next, and switching between patterns every 10 seconds can actually make someone's nervous system feel like it's dodging Nerf darts, right? So picking one consistent rhythm and sticking with it might be what your body needs in that moment or long term, okay? Now, going into understimulation, if you're somebody that's experiencing understimulation with your toys, the goal here then is to amp up those sensations. We want to increase them so we can feel more alive and centered and grounded in the experience. So the first thing that I always explore with my clients is choosing toys with very strong motors. And generally speaking, you got the wands being like the gold standard for the raw power. But some high-end bullets and suction toys can actually be so much better than them. So it becomes a preference. You got to look around. And as a therapist, a licensed therapist, I refuse to give anybody any advice on what toys to use. It's unethical for me to suggest any products. So not going to do that here. You're going to have to do your own Google searching or find a coach or somebody on Instagram or TikTok or someplace that doesn't have the same ethical limitations as me, who is generally open to exploring a variety of different toys, and look that way. The other thing for understimulation is layering the stimulation. So combining the sensations, like using a vibrator on the outside while even using a suction toy, working on the clit, or a dildo internally while maybe the bullet is targeting all the external stimulation. That's gold for a lot of people. That is just stimulation in all different places. That's just like, great, grand, right? It's for a lot, not all, but for a lot of ADHD brains, it can be a complete love for multisensory input and a need. And it keeps you in the moment for a lot of reasons, because it's exploring a variety of different sensory. And for you and your needs, that might just be what you need. The other thing that kind of goes hand in hand with the layer of stimulation is also increasing pressure. You don't have to just hold the toy. You can press on it. Press it against yourself. Change the angles. Get creative with how it wanders, right? You can even, if you feel comfortable, straddling something like a pillow while using it. Any added pressure can make even a mid-strength toy feel just so much more intensified. Totally fine. You can also, again, and this kind of goes with the layer stimulation piece, you can mix internal and external, which is very common in general for a lot of individuals. Some individuals like to stay more on the external than the internal, and that's totally fine. Again, this is going to be a preference, but just from working with clients and hearing other people's stories and experiences, that mix of internal and external can also be very helpful, because some internal toys can hit different types of orgasms for an individual while you're using an external vibrator. And that can just be like then a full body stimulation moment, right? So when you really unpack our bodies, the brain has more sensory data to process, which then can keep it engaged longer. Again, this is like neuroscience at its finest when you really unpack everything. Another thing is you can add temperature play. Temperature play is so underutilized, by the way. But temperature play, use some warmth, right? You can warm your toy in water-safe conditions or with a toy-safe warmer. There's tons of products out there for this. You can use cool, obviously. You can use, this also depends on preference. I know that there's a lot of glass-related products out there, and those or stainless steel can be very fun to use when we're operating with cool sensations. And it can create like a level of tingling that just wakes up your nerve endings in a way that wasn't doing before, right? And that novelty can be enough to just refocus your attention in the moment, and now you're not feeling understimulated anymore. You can also use mental engagements. This one in particular is talking about physical sensation alone not being enough, and adding things like an erotic audiobook. If you're not into that and your partner has a good voice and good confidence, have them dirty talk to you. My husband, he loves me, but I could never have him dirty talk to me. It's just nerd central, but I love him. Side note. But yeah, if your partner's sexy enough in that category and it's not going to be weird, have them dirty talk to you. You can also fantasize inside your head. You can turn some porn on. It all depends on the preference of everyone in the room. But keep in mind that ADHD brains, for the most part, the mental arousal often works best alongside physical stimulation. That's a very common thread for individuals that are dealing with understimulation, for sure. The last thing that can be very helpful is playing with the pattern builds. So instead of, again, jumping straight to the high speed, you can work your way slowly up to the intensity. So for those like who are overstimulated, not jumping from the top and working your way up, just staying low. This one, your goal is to go higher, but allow yourself to work up. That also creates a level of sensation buildup in your body, right? And that gradual build can actually keep an individual engaged longer and make the final sensation then potentially even more satisfying. So again, even though I feel like I just spent a good amount of time on this, I know that there are so many other variables that could be potentially your experience. But those basically are those mechanisms, specifically that you can work and operate within your toys that is important to be mindful of. Now, outside of that, toys in themselves don't exist in a vacuum, unless you bought the wrong kind of suction toy. Scary movie flashback over here, Dewey, or whatever his name was. I don't know. Leave it in the comments if I got the name right. But there's other things that matter, specifically context. So environment cues like the lighting, the background noise, the temperature, even the scent within your room, it can influence how your brain is processing sensation in that moment. So it doesn't even just go into the toy itself. There's other variables that you have to be mindful of as well. That on top of that is even how you are mentally. Like, where are you at, right? Are you stressed? Are you tired? Are you in a menstrual cycle? Where are your hormones at? Are you perimenopausal? Like, so many freaking variables here. And all of that can shift from I need less to maybe I need more in literally the same week. And this is one of, I think, the reasons why so many of my clients get so frustrated, because these are the things that you're not even taught growing up, and how fluid and how far from linear interactions are with our anatomy. But when you throw in ADHD and also, let's just say, hormones and perimenopause, it makes things not as straightforward and quote easy as we've been told it should be. And yeah, it can be exhausting, but here's the thing, you're learning. And you can either take the information, become empowered and do your thing, or it can make you feel so exhausted that you stay fixed. But there is options, and that's the empowerment piece to all of this. But outside of that, the other contexts that are also important to notice are what is your partner dynamics looking like, right? The way that they talk, the way that they're watching you, how you engage. All of this can either calm your nervous system or rev it up in a good or a bad way. You also have to be mindful of the fact that some people relax more when they control every variable. And that does not necessarily mean it's a bad thing. This is like dom versus sub, right? Control versus surrender. There are some people that just want to show up and be like, all right, I'm good. Right? Where their relaxed moment is when they give up their control entirely. Again, as long as everyone is safe and there's no unsafe dynamics going on, it's good. You're golden. The other thing is the layer of sensory, right? It's not always, again, just about the vibrator or the vibrator strength. Adding something like a soft touch, a special warm blanket, something that you know feels good, or even a scent that you just absolutely love. All of those things can help your brain associate the moment that you're in with pleasure instead of overload. So when I say context matters, that's part of your environment. Everything, every piece, not just you putting toy to hand and the lights and the vibe and the texture. It's everything when you're sitting in that room or place, wherever you are. And here's actually, it just came to my head. Think of this as your sensation ecosystem. The toy is just one part of it. At the end of the day, your job is to experiment like a scientist. That right there is your role play homework. You want to change one thing at a time and see what happens. You're not going to try something with the goal of getting it right. that is honestly going to set you up for failure. You want to try things to explore and get curious and figure out what works and doesn't work, right? You're trying to notice how your brain and body respond to different setups and what you can then use in different times and needs. And if you can reframe toy play as an experiment instead of this stupid fucking performance, the pressure drops. And then you get to lean into the curiosity. And if your ADHD brain is like mine, curiosity is like the gold for me. I fucking love curiosity. I think that's why I love being a therapist. I'm always leaning in, be like, why? Ooh, interesting. Lean in. Make it fun. But you can't if you hold an expectation even around how you're supposed to be using a toy in a way that's not set up for your success. It's just going to lead you to shame. And so vibrators, it can be the main character. Or they can be the perfect supporting role depending on your situation. But ADHD brains, for a lot of us, we just need the right mix of stimulation. Between stimulation, also the context, and also our mental load. And so if you're getting overwhelmed, dampen it. If you're zoning out, amp it up. And if you're somewhere in between, you can do the old-fashioned mix and match until you find your fucking sweet spot. Again, lean in with that curiosity, girls. Ladies, vulva owners, let's do it. If you've got hacks for sensory overwhelm or understimulation, I want to hear them. Send them in. I would love to know more because outside of my clients, I don't have a lot. And I actually might compile them into a listener's pleasure playbook. Who the fuck knows? I'll probably add it to the next to-do list. But we can all stop pretending there's one right way to use a vibrator because there isn't. There's only your way. And you can only find that if you feel safe enough to explore it. So until next time, your pleasure, your rules, your settings. Thanks so much for joining me for today's episode. And if you enjoyed what you heard or something really resonated with you, it would mean the world if you subscribed, shared it with a friend, or left a review. That's how we keep these conversations going and growing. And until next time, take care of yourself and keep showing up in ways that matter to you, but more importantly, work with your brain and not against it.